Well, I'm Father Tom, and welcome to Faith in Action. Michael Pascucci has been a very special friend in my life and in the life of so many people on Long Island. Michael has been gifted in the area of faith. He's been gifted in the area of wanting to put his faith into practice, and he has an understanding about life that when he chooses causes to back, he frequently looks for causes that other people overlook. The people are on the side of the road, and I want to chat with him about that. Michael, your friendship has meant a great deal to me, and I just want to say that in a very public way. We had an experience once in which we got a chance to meet with Mother Teresa. And what was that experience like for you?
It was interesting because you asked me maybe 6 months prior to that, if I could meet anyone in the world, who would I most like to meet? And after thinking through all the choices, because I know you could get me to meet anybody, presidents, world leaders, Muhammad Ali, strange characters, I said Mother Teresa would be the person I'd most like to meet. You said, why? I said, she's the paradox of life. She has no money. She owns 2 outfits. One she's wearing, one's in the wash. And her power is so awesome that you know that it's God. And then 6 months later, on December 24th, you said, would you like to meet her? She's in the Bronx. And I said, absolutely. We drove up to the Bronx, and I expected to see the typical convent that I grew up knowing. And what I found was an old brownstone brick building. We went in, and it was colder inside than outside on December 24th. And there she was, and we went into a little room with 2 chairs in a box. She insisted that I sit in the chair, she sit on the box. And her answers to the questions that we had, we spent an hour there. And what was most memorable, that every answer that she gave cut right to the truth. So evidently she had a lot of prayer and a lot of thought, and everything was a gift. I mean, you couldn't hold this woman down. She had a very, very bad cold, and she thought that was a gift. We were talking to her about AIDS, and what she had to do that day. She said AIDS is a gift from God. And, you know, everybody says AIDS is a curse. She said it's a gift because it gives the people who have this a chance to reconcile their lives, to make peace with God, and to die in dignity and so forth. So this is a gift. So she had her agenda for that day with her cold, and being the day before Christmas, she wanted to open up 2 AIDS homes in the city of New York. And in order to do that, she had to get the zoning changed. Now, if anybody knows what dealing with the city of New York or any zoning authorities like.
Very easy.
And she also wanted to have the prisoners who have AIDS, who are dying, have their sentences commuted by the governor in order to bring them into the home. And by 3 o'clock that afternoon, I understand she got both of those things done. So that's why I wanted to meet her.
You have on your jacket a button which says, "Try God." How did you first begin doing that? Because you've been doing that for years.
Someone sent me this. It was Tiffany was selling these, and they were using the money for a drug rehab center. So sent it to me. I put it on, and then I realized that if I gave God free advertising, he would do good things for me. So it's kind of like a billboard for God, you know.
You go to Mass regularly. What does going to Mass mean to you?
When I was young, growing up in St. Mary's Parish in Manhasset, one of my good friends, a youngster, Kevin Kenny, went to kindergarten together. His father went to Mass every day, and I used to watch him. We were going to school. His father was going to Mass every day. And I said, gee, he's such a nice man, and I noticed that he does that. And then as I got into college, I would do it once in a while. And we had the thing in the church, if you made 9 First Fridays in a row, it was like an automatic ticket to heaven. So I mean, I kept getting close every time I get in there 7 or 8. The alarm clock mysteriously wouldn't go off. So it kind of got me into a habit. And the habit's it's a great way to start the day. You go to Mass. It's an opportunity to say prayers, to receive communion. And It's just the right way to start off each day. I'm not fanatical about it. In the normal course of business, I make it a routine stop on my way to work. And if it doesn't, if it's not appropriate, you know, I'll pass. But it's means a lot to me.
Over the course of years, you've tried to learn some things about prayer and also put prayer into your life. What are some of the things that you've learned about prayer?
Oh, prayer works. Prayer works. I mean, it's basically you raise your attention to God, and you ask for what you think you'd like to happen, and basically prayer works. I mean, if you have to be convinced, and of course you get beyond the bulldozer kind of prayer. You know, God's a big bulldozer; He's going to knock this thing over for me. I mean, it's you need patience with it.
You've had a special interest in the right to life movement and the concern for the whole abortion issue. Can you tell me what some of your thoughts are on that are?
I think that's a fundamental issue of life. Life is what we're all about. And as I step back and I looked around and I see what the creation is, I look at trees, earth, sky, stars, grass growing. I said, you know, I can't make any of that happen. I can take something that God made and turn it into something, but I can't create anything. And if I can't create anything, then it would be wrong on my part to help abort babies and, in fact, kill what God is trying to create. And if I ever get up to the pearly gates and I'm going in there and I don't want to answer the question, Michael, why were you killing those babies I was trying to create?
On a couple of occasions when we've chatted, you've talked about that, you know, someday when you go to meet God, God is going to ask you, you know, Michael, I gave you many resources, what did you do with them? In that vein, can you share with us your experience of meeting Ferdinand Mahfoud and Food for the Poor and some of your ideas about taking care of the hungry and the needy of the world?
Well, when you grow up in Manhasset, you know, you don't meet a lot of needy people. I mean, what we consider needy people around us, we're just not exposed. And when you see things on television about what's going on in the hunger and whether in Haiti and so forth, you get a feeling and of what it's like. But I really wanted to see, so I went. In fact, one of the few things that I dragged you to, I asked you to come along, and we experienced what poverty is like. And this wasn't Haiti, this is in Jamaica. This is a big tourist area, but this is outside, this is the slums. And what I saw were 40 people living on a dump, where the highlight of their day was the garbage truck, waiting for the garbage truck to come in so they could pick through that. These people living in cardboard boxes. I remember it was in the 90s, it was very humid. I didn't want to get out of the car and stand on the dump. I mean, this is where these people lived. We went to some homes where disabled and homeless children were living. It was like 500 kids. They didn't even have any substantive food. They had rice, they had water, they had no milk, they had no like tuna fish or protein products. And for relatively small dollars, you could feed those 500 kids for a year. In this country, we have the problem, but we also have a government that's relatively in tune, and we do provide help. I mean, there people will actually starve to death. And we saw 300, 400 families living in a slum. What was interesting, these people are not educated because they don't have the opportunity to be educated. But they get up at 4:30 in the morning to go wait 2.5 hours to get on a bus, to go to take them to some place where they might have the opportunity to work for 50 cents or $1 for the day. Most of the time they don't get to work. They wait another 2.5 hours to get home and bring nothing home to their family other than they might want to trade or barter. And then they turn around, they do the same thing the next morning. They do this every day. It's interesting that these people, they're no different than my friends and my neighbors. They want to help. They're trying to help their neighbor. They share little things that they have. They're concerned. They're very warm, wonderful people. And they also, you know, they do some bad things. I mean, the point is that they're no different than we are. And that's what I learned.
I guess in all of our lives there's a certain tension between the good we want to do and the good we struggle to do. And that in your life, you've worked hard at things like humility, and you've worked hard at trying to do good. Is it easy for you?
Not with you pushing me all the time. You're my most expensive friend. No, I think the point is that if you get off your chair and simply show up, as Woody Allen said, 80% of success is showing up. You know, you expose me to a lot of things, and I also try and get exposed to things. And if you just simply show up, you will find that that struggle happens, and good things will happen as a result of that. And you also will be able to meet a lot of wonderful, wonderful people. Some of my best friends and people I know I've met through a lot of these involvements with the charities. And when you do that, you are able to help others because you end up with a group that can react to different causes.
Many of the charities you've chosen, I think of the National Center for Disabilities. I think of Helen Keller Services for the Blind. I think of some of the things we've done with Ferdinand Mahfoud, people who are in prison, building homes for unwed mothers, and that they seem to be people who are marginal to life. Is that purposeful in your thought?
It just seems that I seem to gravitate to where the causes that don't get the most attention. I just feel drawn to that type of cause.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are a lot of 501c3s. These are charitable organizations, but the ones that I guess meet the most human needs, sick, disabled, or people with basic needs, I've come having a great appetite. In the old days, when I was young, I was very heavy, and I loved food. And, you know, at Lent, I would give up something for Lent. And you know, I finally figured out that, well, give up something for 40 days. In fact, one year I gave up, and I know God loved this one, I gave up speeding for 40 days. Now, I said, that's a big one.
That's not easy to do, I'm telling you.
What I learned from that, though, is that rather than taking something away from myself for 40 days, is trying to do something in a positive way. So feeding a lot of people, or helping sick people, or whatever. It's just a...
You know, I once had an experience in which I went off to Europe for a summer, and I anticipated I was going to work and have money, and the work situation we were in was not a good one, so I was with 3 other guys from the seminary, and we were living on $6 a day for food for the 4 of us. It was basically $1.50 each, and we'd have 1 meal a day. And it was a wonderful experience for me, because not only did I lose weight, but I became a lot more aware of the food that I was eating. I think most of us just put food into our mouth. And then there was a certain solidarity that I had with people who were struggling. I don't think, unless you experience a certain level of hunger, that you can understand hunger, or unless you struggle a little bit yourself, can you be compassionate. There's a very special person in your life, Jocelyn, your wife, and I just think she's absolutely terrific. She's one of the kindest people, and one of the, I mean, that expression, you know, you're out front, you do a lot of things in a quiet way, in many of the things, but Jocelyn is an extraordinary person. Tell me a little bit about her.
A wonderful person. It's a team effort, as you say. I'm more in the front, but I met her when I was 15 years old, St. Mary's in Manhasset. So I've been going around. We dated for 6 years, and we got married at 20 after 6 years. And then, so I've really been going around with the same person since I'm 15 years old. And if you subtract that from my age, it adds up to a lot. So we know that that's qualifies her for sainthood, because I was not the easiest person growing up, you know, as I had to go through a maturation process from 15 years old. So she's been terrific, mainstay, anchor, balanced, calming influence, and a great mother for my children and family. Always available, always says yes, always helps people.
I guess you're touching on something that's true, that Rabbi Gelman and I the other day were talking with some kids at Friends Academy, and this one kid raised his hand. We were talking about religion. And one kid raised her hand and she said, I want to be following the Gospels. I want to be growing in my faith life, but when I go to my church, it seems though there are a lot of closed doors. I don't find welcoming people. And the rabbi looked at it and he said, well, don't give up hope. You go through different stages in your life. Maybe at this stage in your life, maybe the parish isn't as receptive, but you might go off to college pretty soon, and maybe in college you'll find the right environment, or maybe you'll move to another area, or maybe you can contact somebody in the parish and you'll make a connection with them. I think that God must be very patient with us. I mean, I've noticed, like in our friendship, for example, one of the things that happened when I first came into Telecare, I remember a time in which we were going to meet a banker, and you had brought me to meet him, and I was asking him to come on to our board. And I asked him at the lunchtime, and he backed up. When we brought him back to the bank, you looked at me and you said two things. You said, Tom, in this level, which was a level that I was not ready for or used to, he said, you don't ask somebody right away. It's like a marriage. You see if he's interested in you. You invite him to a safe place. Like, come to the studio, take a look at it. And then, if you can live with him and he with you, that's a better way of doing it. I didn't know that. And then you also said something else that I remember very clearly. He said, you're going to be a very public person, and it's important that you be humble. And he says, and you said, I see certain traces of pride in you, and God doesn't need that. The lower you go, the higher God goes. And that meant a great deal to me, to hear that, that we really learn from each other, and that we give each other a lot of latitude to grow, because we don't get it all at once, and sometimes we have to hear those messages over and over again. When you look at the question of Christ and Jesus and God, is there an image that comes to your mind? Is there some story that you're most comfortable with? Is there something that you kind of measure your life up against?
Not really. Having been raised a Catholic, I would say I'm pretty much Pope following, down the line, say middle of the road Catholic. I believe what the Pope teaches. I believe what the Church teaches. I think it's difficult. A lot of the issues with the Church that the Church teaches are difficult. I admire the Pope greatly because it's not easy to take the position that he takes, but I agree with it. And I think one thing that he said, whatever your faith is, if you're Lutheran, Catholic, Jewish, whatever your faith is, it's good. But and try and live your faith as to the best of your ability, whatever it may be. And he's right. And you point that out in the way you live your life. In many ways, you transcend all religious denominations, and that's why you have so many people that have gravitated to you, and that you've become such an ecumenical person, and still you're able to be very Catholic. And I think that is kind of what I believe in, what I follow.
I believe that so much, Mike, because like my parents were Catholic. I mean, I didn't come from no place. I got a name that's important to me. I got a religion. And I have a feeling that in God's plan, I was meant to be Catholic. And therefore, as you say, my mom used to say to me, faith is a gift given to a child that as an adult you have to work on. And then I look at the Gospels and I see that Christ calls us to feed the hungry and visit the sick. But I also notice about Christ that he spends time in prayer. I see Jesus that before he goes off to do anything important, he goes off to pray first. And like, I felt called to be a priest when I was like 9 years old. It was just a kind of a natural thing. And a lot of times in my life, when I'm like driving to a hospital, like this week has been a tough week. A 4.5-month-old baby suffocated. And then I was in the hospital on another day with a 4-year-old child, and we had to pull the plug. And those are heart-wrenching things. I mean, I don't have the answers to those things, but I have this feeling that God is with us. God is a God of compassion. If you were to look at, say, your life, without being simplistic about it, some people gravitate toward the cross, that and some people gravitate toward the resurrection. Is there an aspect of Christianity that seems to work better for you?
I think positive, positive actions rather than meditation. I tried that meditation. I'm incapable of meditating.
Oh, wait a minute.
I mean,
You had the thing with Ferdinand Marfa.
Yeah, try to teach me to meditate. I got enough.
He was
I got
teaching you to meditate, and I remember this conversation. We're driving along in Jamaica, and you say, Ferdy, I'm the worst at this. I'm trying to do it 2 or 3 minutes, and I get totally distracted. What did he say to you? He said, you just begin. How long have you been doing it? He says, 6 months. He says, 6 months? You just beginning. Pascucci, what do you expect? You think you're going to do this right away?
What I've learned is that basically what I have's not mine. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
What I have is I'm just like in charge of it. So that's what my faith is. God gave me a lot of things. Friends, family, business, faith. All of those things I'm supposed to use for other people.
Well, you use the term a lot, stewardship. You know, if we're going to give to something, what do you mean by that?
Exactly, stewardship. Whether you have possessions or ability to work, energy or IQ, all gifts from God, you use those gifts in a stewardship manner that you use them to help others.
Well, what's the reaction of other people? You know, I know a lot of people in the business community. You do too. I don't know anyone else who wears Try God. What is the reaction of other people in the business community knowing that faith means a great deal to you?
You get some people who respond to it and say, that's great. I think that's a terrific way to be, and God's a great way to live your life, and God can do everything the right way. A lot of people, most people are simply neutral, and sometimes it may work to a negative. I was recently, someone said, look, when you're going around meeting these people and so forth, and you better take that pin off while you do that, because, you know, they say, oh, you're one of these religious nuts or one of these, well, you know, you can't, you just leave it on and you just go about your business, because it doesn't matter. Eventually, God is too big for that, and I know what my deal is. Free advertising.
You know, one of the wonderful moments in my life was meeting Bishop Shane. And we were chatting, and he said to me, you know, Tom, your life is going to be a lot more secular than mine ever was. So you're going to have to know the human condition. He said 50 years ago, people were apologetic, defending their faith. And 30 years ago, people were into teachings. But he said today there's such a hunger and thirst for values, and human values, that you're going to have to know those human values and talk to those human values. But at the end of each show, ask, was there any room for Christ in the soul? And if there was, don't worry about your ratings. God will take care of it. And Michael, one of the things that I think we've learned together is, in any project we do, if we do it for God, we don't have to worry. And I love what Mother Teresa teaches us. She says, you know, you don't have to be famous. You're called to be faithful. You're called to do something beautiful for God each day. And I can't help but think that your life is better. I mean, I've known you for now 15 years, and I know your life is better as a result of the good that you've been doing and the prayer that you have, and at times the fasting. It just makes a big difference. We met a very special lady, Sister Nancy, a couple of years ago. Maybe you can share that experience with her.
Sister Nancy is a young nun taking in, giving unwed mothers the opportunity to have their babies, and then once you have them, to have a place to live. And this was a place in Brooklyn she was trying to convert to a home for these mothers. What was amazing, that these were just little kids having babies. These were 14, 15-year-old girls who were, after they had their baby and their baby was a month old, they was jumping rope out in front of the building. But Sister Nancy, a wonderful person who was able to start several of these homes and give dozens of women the opportunity to have their children and to have a chance for life.
Michael Pascucci is now a grandfather.
Yes.
How does that feel?
That feels pretty good. I mean, when you realize what it is, and you have little grandchildren, you can't really understand it until you do. And I have 4 terrific children and 2 grandchildren, and it's all part of God's plan.
It certainly is. You know, I can't say enough about Michael. When I first came into the TV studio, he had made a promise to God that he would try to build a TV station for the church. And Bishop McGann encouraged me to meet with Mike. We had a wonderful dinner together, and we made a commitment to each other that we would work together. And it's been a wonderful thing. I didn't know that much about the business community. Mike taught me a lot about the business community and put a lot of his time and effort behind the things that we've done. We had an experience in which we were in the city one time, and we were walking into a luncheonette, and I saw a homeless person outside. I said, Mike, I don't feel comfortable. We have food. He doesn't. So went out, got the guy, brought him in, and Michael went out and got the guy and brought him in and said, whatever he needs, please give it to him. And he said, Tom, that's our relationship. You have the vision. I take care of the provision. Over the years, there's not been idle words. You know, as a priest, you get a chance to meet people who fall through the cracks. And that's the good we try to do at Telecare. We're here not to have the best TV ratings in the world. We're here to really try to do God's work. And if somebody is hurting, it's like Christ is hurting, so you got to do something about it. And I thank God that Mike Pascucci is in my life and has helped so many people. But the interesting thing is, and you've heard in his interviews, he is who he is because of God. And all of us are who we are because of God. Anything we have is from God, and the glory belongs to God. I'm Father Tom. Thanks for being with us on Faith in Action.